Hi, guys. Welcome to the Foreign Policy of the 1790s, week 5 of COVID learning. We're going to go a little flag happy here today so you guys can figure out which countries that we're dealing with. Big concept here right away, guys, is neutrality. Understanding what neutrality means. Neutrality is not, I repeat, not isolationism. It just means that we do not want to ally ourselves with any single country. And I'll explain that a little bit more in the future here. All right, so we're a new country. We're weak. Coming off of the revolution, we still had the Franco-American alliance intact. This will be our last official alliance until after 1945. However, the French Revolution kind of brought this into focus. The big concept here, and as Ms. Schacht already told you, the French Revolution was one of the major reasons why we have political parties in this country, is there are many people here that admired the French because they helped us in our revolution, and now they would like us to help them in their revolution. And there were others that admired Britain because even though we broke off from them, we were much more tied to British law. George Washington was thrown into the middle of this as president, and he decided we're not going to do either. We don't want to join either side. We were not a powerful country. Our military is not powerful. We had just come off the revolution, and getting involved with European powers that have tremendous military might was not a good thing. This Neutrality Proclamation, guys, is one of the most important things in our early history there is, because this will be with us until after World War II. This is going to set the standard for our foreign policy. It also means that our foreign policy at this time isn't really a foreign policy as much as trying to not have a foreign policy, i.e. involving ourselves with other countries. All right, so this got challenged right away, and everything, you can tie everything that happens during this time period with trying to get involved with an entangling alliance. All right, so on one side, you've got the Citizen Guinea deal. Citizen Guinea kind of broke diplomatic rules. He was a French diplomat, and this angered the people that supported Britain. On the other side, you had the Jay Treaty, which was supposed to stop the British from boarding our ships and seizing sailors. However, it had no effect of doing either of those things. It basically just reiterated our right to our land, which we already had from the Treaty of 1783. The Spanish were alarmed by the Jay Treaty, and so they tried to basically acquire land that was already thought to be part of the young United States. As you can see, the colored area there in 1793. The Pinckney Treaty worked out really well for us. Not only did we get that land back, which set the panhandle of Florida, which is there today, but more importantly, our western border was the Mississippi River, but you can't sail down the Mississippi River without going through New Orleans, which was owned by the Spanish at this time. And they gave us right of passage through New Orleans, which is huge if you want to trade. And that is what the United States does at this time, is we're trading. So the Pinckney Treaty was actually a very good deal for the Americans with the Spanish at this time. Now, this part in your book is under domestic affairs, but we would like you to remember that even though Native Americans are obviously in the territory of the United States, they are foreign nations. They are other nations within our territory. And so any diplomatic endeavors or wars with Native American tribes is a foreign policy type thing. So the Ohio Valley, which is an area that settlers have been trying to get into since after the French and Indian War, is finally opened up to settlement. However, the Native Americans are still here and will be. And the general history of the Native Americans in this country is it's not very good for them. It doesn't work out very well. They lose a battle at Fallen Timbers, and they signed the Treaty of Grenville, which just meant they got pushed even further to the west. Now, this is not quite at the level of Washington's Neutrality Proclamation, but it's close. As Ms. Schacht already said, his farewell address warned against political parties. It also warned against permanent foreign alliances, okay, i.e. like the ones that we have today, but we did not have until after World War II. So this is the one warning that we really listened to in George Washington's farewell address. Great way to remember that is George wanted the U.S. to stay safe. stay away from foreign entanglements. All right. And again, we were a very weak country at that time in comparison to European powers. So after Adams became president, we had one little more dust up with the French, which angered the Federalists who supported the English. We tried to get the French, who were also boarding our ships, to stop boarding our ships, and they wouldn't do that. And this led to the XYZ affair. Allegedly, 3 of the diplomats in France basically wanted a $5 million bribe or $10 million bribe to talk to their foreign minister. And the famous quote was, "Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute." This angered the Federalists. The response to this by the Federalists was to pass the Alien and Sedition Acts. These are some of the worst acts to be passed in U.S. history. They were clearly unconstitutional. And basically, the Federalists were trying to consolidate their power by passing these. The sedition part of that was literally that you could not criticize President John Adams. And in some ways, he said that he wasn't even in favor of this kind of concept. But this unfortunately led to an even a reaction that is even worse or just as bad. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, 2 of the leaders of the Democratic Republican Party, basically set the standard in the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions that every state had the right to nullify a federal law. This makes governing very impractical. This weakens the central government, which was Jefferson Madison's viewpoint. However, the problem with this is nullification is going to come back to haunt the U.S. again numerous times, specifically before the Civil War, but you will even see concepts of nullification in the 21st century that we will talk about at a later date. So please remember nullification. It's an incredibly important concept, okay? All right, so that is it for the foreign policy, or the lack of foreign policy at this time. And I will now pass it on to Mr. Urban. Thanks.